If you're new to LinkedIn or you're trying to build your professional presence on the platform, it can be an intimidating space to begin with. So today I want to talk about how you can make your first 500 connections on LinkedIn. Grab your cup of tea and let's dive into it. Firstly, to be clear, the number of connections that you have on your LinkedIn profile really doesn't matter. It is the quality of those connections that will have the most impact on your career. However, it is something that is going to add to your social proof, to your credibility, and to your confidence on a platform that can often feel like a daunting space, especially when you are potentially earlier on in your career or you haven't often used the platform. And you want to be able to grow your network and your relationships on the world's biggest networking platform. So if making connections on LinkedIn is a small win for your confidence on the platform, or it is the start to new opportunities, then let's dive into my simple strategy to build your network on LinkedIn. My tip number one is to optimize your LinkedIn profile. Your LinkedIn profile is the shopfront window of your professional brand. So ask yourself if it looks inviting, if it looks like you are open for business, or if it looks like it is potential lights out and no one is home and you are not actually actively engaged in your profile. Does it look like it is a vibrant profile that you are welcoming new connections into? For example, do you have an up-to-date profile picture? Have you selected an image or created an image to replace the default banner on your LinkedIn profile? Do you have a unique or attention-grabbing headline as a part of your profile? Have you optimized the About Me in your LinkedIn profile? In your About Me, are you calling people to action to connect with you? And have you also optimized your profile for your location and your professional history? And when I talk about optimizing your LinkedIn profile, I don't just mean completing all of the different sections that LinkedIn provides as a part of your profile. I really want you to think about search engine optimization. So be intentional about the words that you are choosing as a part of your headline, for example, or that you are using as a part of your About Me. How are you integrating keywords that tell LinkedIn what your expertise or what your field of interest or career history is about? How are you making sure that you are targeting keywords and key phrases? If you do want to learn more about search engine optimization for your LinkedIn profile, then check out my previous episode on this topic. My tip number two is to leverage your existing connections. So once you have optimized your LinkedIn profile and it looks like an inviting space to connect with, then leverage your existing network before you start to build beyond that. For example, have you connected with your existing colleagues on the platform? Have you thought about your career history and connected with your former colleagues as well? Just because you have moved on from a role doesn't mean that you can't make sure that you maintain those relationships on LinkedIn, because you likely also never know where those relationships could go in the future. And you also just want to stay in touch with people that you have worked with and had a great relationship with in the past too. Also take some time to remember the people that you have worked with who weren't actually a part of your organization. So who were your third party connections, for example? Who were the suppliers that you worked with or the other organizations that you frequently engaged with? Think about all those various organizations in each of the roles that you have been in and go through and think about the people that you worked with and connect with them on LinkedIn if you aren't already connected to them. You'd be surprised how many people you can likely think of in this space when you start to look beyond just the people that you have worked with. You might also consider connecting with your former peers. For example, the people that you went to high school with, the people that you studied with in college or in university, or the people that you are simply friends with. You can make sure that you translate some of those relationships with your peers and your friends onto your LinkedIn profile as well. You might also have some special interest groups that you have been a part of where you can make sure that you connect with those people on LinkedIn as well. For example, you might be particularly involved in a community group or a sport or a hobby, and you can connect with the people in those communities in a professional sense on your LinkedIn platform too. And I always find this particularly interesting if they are people that you have more of a friendship with as opposed to more of a professional relationship with, because you get to see more of their professional background. You get to see the other side of them that you might not see as a part of your relationship as friends. My tip number 3 is to join private groups. Now, this is something that you just need to give a little bit of thought to as to what is going to be most relevant to you. For example, if you went to, say, a particular college or a particular school or university, there might be an alumni group related to that particular institution. So you could join that group as a private group or as a group on LinkedIn, and you might connect with people in that group. You might share posts within that particular forum, and that will start to create more momentum with potential connections that you can make outside of the connections that you have already leveraged in your existing platform. What is really nice about the groups on LinkedIn is that it establishes a mutual ground. It immediately connects you with a mutual interest. So, for example, if you are both part of a particular group and you go to send an invitation to someone, they can see that you share this mutual connection. So they're more likely going to accept your connection or be interested in connecting with you because they understand that you have some sort of shared history. My tip number 4 is to target a niche to grow your LinkedIn profile. Now, if you have optimized your LinkedIn profile well, you have started to share more with LinkedIn about your field of expertise or about what industry you are a part of. So you'll notice that the suggestions that you receive from LinkedIn for connections will be more related to your field, or LinkedIn will potentially offer you suggestions that it knows is going to be useful to whatever it is that you are trying to achieve in your career or your field of interest. So when you see those suggested connections served to you, if you notice that someone's role or the organization that they work with is of interest to you, even if you don't know them personally, then don't be afraid to send them a connection request. It's likely that that person is not going to completely ignore you if they can see that you are part of a related industry. For example, when I was working in sports marketing, it would have made sense for me to connect with different marketing managers or different communications managers in different sports within my state or within the country or even on the world stage as well, because we share that mutual understanding of a particular industry. So don't just think about the people that you know personally when it comes to your LinkedIn profile. The idea is to network, to introduce yourself, particularly when you are first starting. This can be a really useful way to grow your LinkedIn profile. I personally now don't send any LinkedIn invitations, and that is purely because I create content regularly on LinkedIn, and I am aware that if I create content regularly on LinkedIn, I don't want it to be something that people have to see on their feeds if they're not particularly interested in that thing. So now that I have been on LinkedIn for a little while, instead of sending connection requests, I just welcome the invitations into my LinkedIn world for the people who are interested in the content that I create. Which actually leads nicely into my tip number 5, which is to share content. Now, it is one thing to optimize your LinkedIn profile for your headline, your about me, to target your community on LinkedIn, but it is a whole other to be having ongoing conversations about your industry and your field of expertise on LinkedIn. And that is where sharing content can be a really powerful way to build your personal brand presence on LinkedIn. Because by sharing content, you aren't just taking this set and forget approach to your LinkedIn profile. You are constantly adding to the conversation. You are constantly sharing your perspective. You're showing the depth of your expertise. And above all, you're showing a passion for your industry. You're showing that you care about the future of your industry and you aren't just looking at your work as ticking the box for paying the bills and working a 9-to-5 job. You're showing that you actually have an interest in contributing positively to your industry. When I read Robert Greene's 48 Laws of Power, one thing that really stood out to me was the law that he highlighted to enter action with boldness. And this is something that I think is a really powerful law when it comes to using LinkedIn, particularly if you are new to the platform or if you are maybe part of Gen Z and you are just starting to make your mark on your industry for the first time. And you can feel potentially intimidated by the level of experience that it feels like other people have on LinkedIn. But instead of just being like the majority of people on most social media platforms who lurk, entering action with boldness is something that I think is a really nice reminder to be a leader on LinkedIn instead of being a lurker. No matter what level of experience you have, you don't have to be an expert to share content on LinkedIn. You can simply learn out loud. You can share your journey as you go. And when you act like a leader on LinkedIn, the invitations will flow freely towards you. Thanks so much. For more on how to SEO your LinkedIn profile, then check out my previous episode on this topic.